Let me tell you something that may shake your understanding of your current season. God didn't forget you. He's forging you. He's preparing you in private for what he will reveal in public. But I know how it feels. You pray, you cry, you wait. And yet silence. You see others rising, celebrating, moving forward, while you feel stuck, ignored, maybe even abandoned. And the enemy whispers, you're invisible, you're forgotten, you don't matter. But here's the truth. Just because you feel forgotten doesn't mean you are. Look at David. Before he was ever a king, he was a forgotten shepherd boy. When the prophet Samuel came to anoint the next king of Israel, David's own father didn't even call him from the field. But what man overlooks, God has already selected. They didn't invite David, but God had already chosen him. Because God doesn't pick based on appearance. He picks based on purpose. And the purpose you carry is bigger than the place you're stuck in. You think your delay is a sign of divine forgetfulness. No, it's the sign of divine development. You're in the gym of faith. You're in the wilderness of preparation. You're not wasting time. You're being shaped by it. Chua. And let us not grow weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. Galatians 6:79. Some of you are in your due season delay. You're standing on a promise that hasn't happened yet. But let me remind you, God doesn't operate on your timeline. He operates on his truth. Just because you're not TSR yet doesn't mean God's not here. He's in your midnight prayers. He's in your silent tears. He's in the no you didn't want to hear and the door that closed in your face. Why? Because he's preparing something in you before he releases something THROGHU. Some of the most powerful work God will ever do in your life, he will do in secret. We don't like that. We want spotlight. We want instant promotion. But God is not in a hurry. He's more interested in who you're becoming than what you're achieving. You see, everybody celebrates Joseph's promotion, but they forget his process. He had a dream, yes. But then what? He was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, thrown into prison, forgotten by men, but never forgotten by God. Because while Joseph was hidden in the pit, God was polishing his purpose. While he was in prison, God was preparing the palace. While he was being overlooked in the next chapter, the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy and gave him favor. Genesis 39:21. Do you hear that? The Lord was with him, not in the palace, but in the prison. Not when he was favored, but when he was forgotten. Don't despise your hidden season. My friend, that's where God strengthens your spine. That's where he increases your sensitivity to his voice. That's where he cuts away everything in you that can't go with you to the next level. Because elevation without preparation is dangerous. You think you're being punished, but you're actually being preserved. You think you're being delayed, but you're actually being developed. You think this season is useless, but God says, I am using this season to build something unshakable in you. So what do you do when you feel hidden? You worship anyway. You pray anyway. You serve anyway. You prepare anyway. Because God never wastes a season. If he's keeping you in the dark, it's not to hurt you. It's to develop you in a way that no spotlight ever could. Remember what Jesus said, your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly. Matthew 16:6, God sees you, God hears you. God is not blind to your tears or deaf to your pain, but he's more committed to your destiny than your comfort. He's not just preparing the blessing for you. He's preparing you for the blessing. Let's be honest. Silence can be scary. When you pray and nothing changes, when you cry out and there's no sign, when heaven feels quiet and your heart feels broken, you begin to wonder, has God left me? But here's the truth you need to shout into the silence. God is still speaking, even when you can't hear him. God is still moving, even when you can't see it. God is still working, even when you don't feel it. There's a difference between God being silent and God being absent. Silence is not abandonment, it's refinement. Sometimes God pulls back his voice so you can lean in closer. Sometimes he withholds answers so you can discover the power of his presence. Because if God gave you everything instantly, you'd seek the blessing more than the blesser. You see, faith is not proven by shouting hallelujah in the light. Faith is proven when you whisper, I trust you in the dark. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46 and 10. That verse isn't just about peace. It's about positioning. Be still long enough to realize that your fight is not yours. It's God's. Sometimes we're so busy trying to figure it all out that we forget to rest in the fact that he already has it worked out. Let me remind you of someone you know, Jesus. Even he faced a silent season. On the cross, Jesus cried out for, my God, why have you forsaken me? Matthew 27:46, and heaven was silent. But did that mean the Father had abandoned the Son? No, it meant the plan was unfolding. It meant salvation was being birthed through suffering. It meant Sunday's resurrection was being prepared in Friday's silence. Dost, if Jesus went through silence and still fulfilled his purpose, so can you. Silence doesn't stop the promise. It strengthens it. This is where your roots grow deep. This is where your identity gets refined. This is where your character becomes Chris-like. You want God to speak louder. He wants you to trust deeper. You want the answer now. God says, I am the answer. Walk with me. You thought the silence was a punishment, but it's actually a sacred invitation to deeper intimacy with your Father. So next time you feel that eerie stillness, don't panic. Don't quit. Lean in. Listen close. Stay planted, because your breakthrough is building beneath the surface. You think this delay is a detour, but what if it's actually a divine setup? What if what you're calling a setback, God is calling a stage? Because here's what I've learned. God often hides your promotion inside of your problem. Let's go back to Joseph for a moment. When he was sold as a slave, it looked like a setback. When he was falsely accused and thrown into prison, it looked like a setback. When the butler forgot him for TWYARS after promising to help, another setback. But what Joseph didn't know was that every no was leading to THE door. Every betrayal was pushing him closer to the palace. Every silence was setting up the moment when Pharaoh would call his name. And in Onondawa, Joseph went from prisoner to prime minister, from the pit to the palace. Because what feels like a breakdown in the moment is often the birthplace of your breakthrough. What they meant for evil, God meant for good. Genesis 15:20, let that verse echo in your heart. They meant it for evil. They tried to ruin you. They tried to bury you. But they didn't know you were a seed. And seeds grow best when buried. In the dark, in the dirt, where no one sees them. But when the time is right, the seed breaks through the ground. And when God says it's time, nothing can hold you back. So if you feel buried right now, if you feel like life has covered you in disappointment, pain, delays, and closed doors, I came to tell you, you are not buried to die. You are planted to rise. Your story isn't over. Your dream isn't dead. Your calling isn't canceled. God's not done with you. And when God finally brings you into your moment, when the door finally opens, when the platform finally appears, you won't be walking in empty-handed. You'll be carrying strength. You'll be carrying faith. You'll be carrying the power of every single lesson you learned in the valley, because the weight of your calling requires the strength of your crushing. Let me say that again. The weight of your calling requires the strength of your crushing. God's not punishing you. He's preparing you. He's setting the scene for your comeback. And when he says, Nandawa, all the nights of crying, the years of waiting, the prayers that felt unanswered, they'll all make sense. Hear me loud and clear. Your waiting season is not wasted. God is weaponizing it. He's sharpening your faith. He's deepening your roots. He's toughening your spirit for what's coming next. You think you're stuck, but you're really being strengthened. You think time is being lost, but time is being invested. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. Isaiah 40:31. We love the mount up with wings like eagles part, but we forget the waiting part, because waiting is not weakness. It's warfare. Every second you're waiting in faith is a second the enemy is losing ground. Every time you trust God, instead of quitting, you're building spiritual muscle. You're learning how to worship without results. You're learning how to pray without applause. You're learning how to trust without seeing the whole picture. And that kind of faith, that's dangerous faith. That's the kind of faith the enemy can't stand. That's the kind of faith that splits seas and moves mountains. That's the kind of faith that causes heaven to move and hell to tremble. Because here's the truth. You don't need to feel strong to be strong. Strength is not a feeling. It's a choice. And while you're waiting, you're choosing to keep standing, to keep believing, to keep hoping. And that makes you a giant in the spirit. When you trust God in your nothing, He can trust you with your everything. When you stay faithful with no platform, He can trust you with influence. When you stay consistent in the shadows, He will bring you into the spotlight. Let me remind you, God is not pacing heaven in panic. He's not nervous. He's not late. He's not looking for plan B. He's orchestrating the perfect moment, the perfect door, the perfect breakthrough. You think your moment passed. God holds time in His hands. Your moment hasn't even started yet. I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. Jeremiah 29:11, plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you a future and a hope. But the pain is real. But so is His promise. The wait is long, but so is His reach. He hasn't forgotten. He hasn't failed. He's just not finished yet. You've waited. You've wept. You've wondered if God still sees you. But now, I want you to hear this deep in your soul. It was never about being ready. It was always about trusting the one who is. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to feel strong enough, holy enough, perfect enough. Because God never asked you to be perfect. He just asked you to say yes. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. 2 Corinthians 12:9, that means your weakness is the platform for His power. That means the areas where you feel least qualified are the exact places where God will show up strongest. You thought God was waiting for you to get it all together. But really, He was just waiting for you to surrender, to let go of trying to force the outcome, to stop comparing your timeline to others, to trust that His delays are not denials. They are divine designs. You wanted to skip the process, but the process was preparing you for the weight of the promise. Let me say it like this. You didn't miss it. You didn't mess it up. You're right on time. He hasn't forgotten you. He's been with you in every silent night, in every dry season, in every valley, in every why. God, He was there. And now He's calling you to rise, not because you're perfect, but because you're positioned. Not because you're strong, but because you're surrendered. Not because you feel ready, but because He is ready. So here's what I need you to do right now. Get up. Dust yourself off. Speak life over your situation. Say it out loud if you have to. I am not forgotten. God is still writing my story. What He started, He will finish. He brought me to it. He'll bring me through it. This season is not the end. It's the beginning. I still believe, because this is your comeback season. This is the chapter where you rise. This is the moment where you stop seeing yourself as a victim and start walking like a child of the King. It's time. Time to step into what God already prepared. Time to trust even when it doesn't make sense. Time to believe again. Time to walk like you're already chosen, because you are. Don't quit in the wilderness, because the promised land is just ahead. Don't stop in the silence, because the next sound might be your miracle. And above all, don't believe the lie that says God forgot you. Because in the very moment you felt most invisible,